I've got like
all right. We are live. Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Pork earrings. Welcome everyone to Nebraska Legislative Study Group. We are live tonight with District 2 candidate Sarah Slattery. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for running. We need more people who are willing to get out there and do that, so we really appreciate you. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so if you want to just start by talking about the District 2 boundaries, kind of your location and where that's at.
Yeah, so District 2 was pretty pretty well changed from with redistricting. So it used to be Cass County, part of Sarpy, and a little bit of Odo. Now it's just the entirety of Cass County and a little bit of Lancaster, including a little bit of Lincoln proper. It goes to about 84th Street from Alvo Road to Van Dorn Street. So nice little chunk.
Yeah, so that changed after redistricting. So I just want to use that as a reminder to viewers to double check the website to make sure they look up their address and see if their district changed after redistricting that happened last fall. After the 2020 census. So just a reminder to all of our viewers on that. So thanks for explaining that your boundaries changed for that district. And if you want to start off just by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So again, my name is Sarah Slattery. I have lived in Legislative District 2 my entire life. I grew up in Plattsmouth. My opened a family business with my folks about 15 years ago that's out in the rural part of the county. It's called Slattery Vintage Estates Vineyard and Tasting Room. I'm the chef there. And then I lived in Murray for 7 or 8 years, and now I live back in Plattsmouth again. But so yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with the Cass County part of my district, but I'm excited about having the Lancaster County part. So yeah, like I said, I'm a classically trained chef. I'm also the school nutrition director, aka lunch lady, at my daughter's small Catholic school here in Plattsmouth. It's the school I went to growing up, kind of a generational. My dad went to the school, traditional thing in my family. But yeah, so I became the nutrition director there about 3 years ago and came in and revamped the school lunch program, brought in a fresh fruit and vegetable bar, brought back a lot of scratch cookery. And I'll be honest, these kids get the same quality of meals that I charge a lot more to adults for. At my other job. And actually right now school meals have been free for the last 2 years, which has been amazing, and I'm sure I'll get to talk about that later. But yep, and aside from that, I'm a single mom. I've got a 12-year-old 6th grade daughter who's keeping all of our pets quiet in the other room, and we live here in Plattsmouth with a bunch of houseplants. So
okay, well, I guess that explains the fork and spoon earrings, which are super cute, by the way. So
now I have a knife and a spork. I'm a big nerd.
Oh no, I love it. It's passion. It's passion. It's great. So on that topic, I know that well, do you want to talk about your platforms then and like what you're running on and your main issues? I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you want to talk more about that.
Sure. So I'm basically running as a working class person, right? I work 2 jobs. I'm a single mom. I don't see a lot of representation that looks like me in the legislature, and so that was kind of what inspired me to run. Is that I think that working families like my own deserve a voice where decisions about our lives are being made. So my platform, the things that are important to me, and I think the constituents in my district, are obviously education and school nutrition. We need to better fund our public schools. We need to, like I said, the last couple of years we've been feeding our kids for free, and I've seen firsthand the benefits, both like in the nutrition side for the kids, but also just in the burden that it takes off of these working families not having to buy the lunches, pack the lunches, stress about the lunches, or pay for the school meal. And so they're, not having to worry that their kid's going to have a hot, nutritious meal has been so amazing. So I would love to look into ways to continue providing universal school meals for all students. And then along with that, other things that are important to working families, healthcare accessibility, not just affordable, but also in my district, there's some really rural parts. So if you had an emergency, it might take 40 minutes to get to the hospital. So just having more accessible, closer options for when you need healthcare and you live kind of far from a city. Also, workers' rights. So, making sure that if you work 40 hours a week, you're not living below the poverty level. I think that that is a no-brainer and should go across the board. And then also, I like to support small businesses because, like I said, I have one with my family. And, in the face of the pandemic, I saw so many small businesses in these rural towns close and people's dreams were crushed just because they didn't have the support that they needed from our government, like I think that we could do. So those are the things. It's kind of an umbrella of things to help working class folks. And I think it's kind of, I think it's got some appeal for people that have been ignored for far too long.
Right, definitely. So let's dive into each one of your platforms, one by one, starting with the nutrition. And if you want to tell us a little bit more about the program that you started at the school that you currently are with, and how you've seen success in that, and like what your vision is for, a state policy along
Right.
those lines.
So, the program that I have is the same as any school. It's in just because I'm at a Catholic school, the school nutrition program is a separate entity, and it's a federal government program. A lot of bureaucratic paperwork, a lot of record keeping, and things like that. But what's really great is they have these um, guidelines that you have to keep as far as sodium content and whole grains and things that you're offering. So. Um, the meals that I'm serving to the kids, and they always have had to meet these guidelines, but there are a lot of pre-made products that meet the guidelines that are just heat and eat. And I came in and I've developed um, ways to use commodities foods and turn them that meet the guidelines and turn them into. So, for instance, we get par cooked brown rice from commodities, we get canned black beans, we get frozen diced chicken, and I turn that into basically like a Chipotle style burrito bowl where I season the rice, cook the beans, have the meat, put it all in a bowl. Then we have all kinds of fresh salsas and guacamole and all these fruits and vegetables on our salad bar. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially the same thing that you pay $9 for at Chipotle, and my kids are getting it, and it cost me essentially nothing because these were commodities foods from the government. So yeah, so that's kind of my vision, is taking these government provided foods that are kind of bland on their own and teaching these school nutrition professionals ways to turn them into something that is maybe a restaurant quality meal for their kids on a dime. So that's kind of my plan and my thoughts about it, process about that. I think, I've been able to do it small scale at my school, and I would like to share my successes and help bring that quality food to kids across the state. And yeah, like I was said before, the benefits of these nutritiously dense meals on the kids and their minds and their bodies for learning is without question. So
Right.
yeah.
So have the kids, like, what kind of like response have you seen from the kids that's been positive?
So we started making our low fat ranch in house instead of just buying, because pre-made low fat ranch is pretty gross.
Mm-hmm.
But so we make and we call it the good ranch. And we go through, and I don't even have a lot of kids. I've got maybe 80 to 100 kids that eat every day. And we go through about 50 pounds of fresh produce a week just because we have the good ranch. They eat salad like you wouldn't believe. They eat, sliced up cucumbers and mini sweet peppers and sugar snap peas and all of that. Like, and they'll come up and say, when are we going to have celery again? And I'm like, geez, they're requesting this stuff. It's amazing. So the amount of the fresh produce that they're consuming and their excitement about it has just like quadrupled. And my participation in my program has, went up about 150% from before, when it wasn't free, but also when we didn't have the good ranch.
Right. Well, it's definitely a unique platform. I mean, that issue itself is like not one that you hear candidates talk a lot about. So I appreciate that you're bringing something different to the conversation. And it obviously is super important. We know that the school nutrition, especially sometimes can be the only meals that some kids get.
Absolutely. And yeah, no, and I guess I haven't yet mentioned my favorite nerdy thing about all of this is my campaign hashtag is hashtag lunch lady for legislature. So
Oh,
that's
wonderful.
me. It's kind of catchy. But yeah, that's I've got on my lid there's a lunch tray with my platform and there's a nutrition label with my facts about me. I'm
Oh,
going yeah,
that's
I'm going
so
full
cute.
in
I
on
love it.
I want to feed. I love feeding people, and that's how that's how I've made change, and now I want to make it so that I can help other people feed people.
That's your way into their hearts, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's through the stomach always.
Always. It works for me. I know that. Okay, great. So moving on to small business owners. You said that you're a small business owner. Can you tell us a little bit more about your business and maybe some things that you'd like to see changed in Nebraska regarding small businesses?
So yeah, so I said I have this small business that I started 15 years ago with my folks. It's called Slattery Vintage Estates Vineyard and Tasting Room. We are a vineyard and tasting room, as is the name. But we were also Nebraska's first glamour camping destination. So we've got, the glamping bungalows. We do, yeah. So that's us. We're
Is that in
originally maybe in
Ashland?
Omaha. What?
Is that in Ashland?
No. So there and now there's some everywhere, but we were the
Oh,
first
okay,
ones.
okay.
We started in 2010. Um, and so we have that. We've got a wedding venue reception hall, and we do live music in the summer. We have a wood-fired pizza oven. We're kind of a destination um, tourist agritourism kind of business. And we've grown. We opened in January 2008. We've grown a lot since then. So this is our 15th year. And aside from that, I cater. So I cater the things that we have on premises, but I also cater things offsite. So that's my small business, I guess, and it's been really great. I love everybody loves a good family business. I love working with my folks. It's been really great. I think there's some things that small business owners are concerned about. Um, like I agree that $15 minimum wage is the least that we can do, but I see concern from constituents and even my folks, small business owners that are like, well, I can't afford that. So maybe figuring out ways to help subsidize that at first with small business owners or figure out ways that we can pay our workers appropriately without putting these businesses, there's because that just keeps the big companies that are able to pay it in business and the small businesses out. So finding a common ground that we can work together and help everyone thrive, the workers and the small businesses is something that I'm looking for. So
Right. And that's kind of a good segue into your other platform for workers' rights, because sometimes I guess those things can be at odds with each other.
right. So yes, and like I said before, I definitely feel anybody that works 40 hours a week should not be living below the poverty level. Full stop. That's absurd, unheard of. I mean, not unheard of, should be unheard of.
Right.
But also, it shouldn't cost you your job if you have to take care of a sick family member. You also shouldn't have to choose between when you're actually sick, staying home, or losing your job. These are things that are, it's not good for anyone. And that also segues into the healthcare accessibility. Like we need to be able to take care of ourselves. Um, Staying healthy shouldn't be a luxury. And keeping our employees and our kids, our students in school and our employees at work is beneficial for everybody. So yeah, like I said, it's all kind of everything I have is kind of linked under an umbrella that is meant to help working class folks.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've thought it through a lot too. So I appreciate that, and I know you've been working really hard for a long while, at least a year, right?
Yep.
So now that your district, I want to talk a little bit about the boundaries of your district changing and how you've got a little bit of rural and a little bit of urban now with parts of Lincoln. And I know that can be, especially in Nebraska, can be a challenge for sure, right? Because it's always kind of rural versus urban, which it shouldn't be, but unfortunately it is. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you think you're gonna move forward now that your district is like that?
Well, I think I've got a little bit more progressive platform than maybe the incumbent that I'm running against, and that's the other thing. I am running against an incumbent. I know that that's not the case with a lot of the folks that you've interviewed, and a lot of the people that are running. But so it's a whole new set of challenges to run against an incumbent, especially one that was appointed by the governor. But so getting the Lancaster and the Lincoln roped into my district is probably more beneficial for me than what was previously there. But it is going to be a challenge. But I will say, Cass County is uniquely positioned right between Lincoln and Omaha, and I would say a good portion of the constituents in my county work in either Lincoln or Omaha. So we're not completely rural and out of touch with city. A lot of us work in these cities and know how to navigate them, and the issues are some of the same ones that we face. So it's not as rural as some districts out in western Nebraska, but yes, there are still quite a few farmers and a lot of rural concerns here too. So yeah, it's a unique district. But I think I've got experience with our family business being out in the rural, and I've worked in Omaha. I went to Creighton, city experience. So I don't know. I think I'm the most uniquely qualified of the candidates in my race because I have all of this vast experience of the different types of population areas.
That's a good point. It looks like we have a question that relates to district lines.
Okay.
There it is. What are you finding is the most pressing issue facing your district, and how's it going meeting new voters? Oh, let's do the first part. Yeah, when you're at the doors, and especially now if you've canvassed or talked to voters in the new part of the district, Lincoln and whatnot, what are you finding that you're hearing from constituents or, future constituents? And are they different when you talk to your Cass County versus Lancaster County?
So I've met some Lancaster, Cass County, I know these folks. This has been my life, and these are my neighbors and my friends and my customers. And so talking to them is talking to people I know. And so we hit it off and we talk about, but the thing I find that most people will connect with me with is the education and the school nutrition. The school nutrition mostly does, like you said, it's not something that people bring up a lot, and let alone are passionate about like I am. So I can always talk to somebody about hot lunch. Everybody loves hot lunch, right? Hot lunch is great. Everybody loves food. So that's something that I use to connect with everybody. But yeah, that education component seems to be the one that is the most consistent across the board, because some of these rural schools are completely underfunded, and some of these urban schools are inequitably funded. So it's funding our public schools is a concern that everybody shares.
Okay. Well, it's good that you can find some common ground between all the voters you're talking with. I think we always have more common ground than we realize, of course.
Right. I agree.
Okay, well, thank you for the question, Cindy.
Thank you.
Okay. So still along the lines of the rural parts of your district, are you seeing a lot of challenges with the healthcare accessibility in those areas?
Yeah, there just aren't. Well, especially now with this pandemic, just like we're having a shortage of teachers, we've got a shortage of healthcare professionals. So there just aren't enough people to man these rural. A lot of these clinics and stuff used to be open, 1 and 2 days a week, and now they just don't have the staff to do that. I know even my doctor's office here in Plattsmouth, which is a pretty well populated area has cut back their office to, a few less days a week, just because everybody's burnt out, and not that the need for care has gone down, but just the availability of people to do it. And so that's something that we need to look into, is getting and retaining more nurses and teachers to, stay here and help in these rural areas where, and we need to incentivize them with good pay, because I think that's, traditionally you don't want to work out in the middle of nowhere because you're also not going to make anything.
Right. And so do you have any ideas on like how we can keep doctors, healthcare workers, teachers, the like, wanting to go to those areas, especially in Nebraska where we already have that brain drain problem?
Right. I mean, I would have to talk to some of these folks and figure out what's missing, that they think that they would incentivize them to go out there. Like, I know my family's got a cabin out in north central Nebraska in the Sandhills, and it is some of the most beautiful scenery I've seen in the world. Beautiful. You can see all the stars at night. But yeah, there's no internet, right? So building up the infrastructure and things like that out to these rural areas, and making sure that they are as modernized as they can be, so that these people that are maybe leaving an urban environment aren't losing that piece of it. So yeah, I think that's probably a huge part of it, is making sure that we get high-speed internet to everywhere in the state, so that everybody's on a level playing field. That would be huge for getting people to move out to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely an issue that's been brought up by other senators before too. So maybe something that you can take with you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because even in Cass County, which is, like I said, right between Lincoln and Omaha, my folks out at the vineyard have to have satellite internet, because it just hasn't made it there yet. And we're only 40 miles from each city. So think about somebody way out in western Nebraska, like, it's probably, and satellite internet sucks. It's not reliable. And
right.
So yeah, we got to do better. So yes, I would love to help bring some infrastructure needs to these rural.
Well, speaking of infrastructure, I saw on the news last night that there's plans possibly for a solar farm in Cass County. What do you know about that? And can you tell us?
Well, I was actually at the County Planning Commission meeting last night, where there were probably 300 people in attendance. As happens online, some misinformation got spread. People got riled up and upset, thinking that it was, something that it wasn't. And so we were at the county fair, at the fairgrounds, in the expo building, in the huge building, and it was full. And so I listened to this company that wants to come in. They want to put in a solar farm that's about 3,400 acres outside northwest of Murray, which is south of Plattsmouth a little bit. So and they're
that is your district, right?
Yes, it is. It's right outside. It's right a couple miles from where I used to live.
Okay.
So it would bring in potentially $1 million+ of new tax revenue to the county every year for 30 years. And 800,000 of that would go to the Conestoga School District, who continuously fails to pass these bond measures. And the school needs to expand and grow and update. And they, people don't want to pay more property tax to make that happen. So this seems like a no-brainer, right? We can get $800,000, which is 20% of that school's annual budget. They can increase their budget by 20% by putting them in this solar farm. And the landowners have come into agreements with this corporation, and this was a zoning meeting. So the people whose land it is, and the company that's there, everybody's fine with it. But it was all of these people who don't really have everybody's got an opinion about stuff, right? But they're not really going to be directly affected by it in any way. It came in.
They just
really,
don't like how it looks or something.
Yeah, something. I think there was some misinformation. They thought it was going to be. Somebody posted a picture of some solar farm out in the desert in like New Mexico, and it was panels as far as the eye can see. But that's not how they do things in areas like this. So this would be. They said of the 3,400 acres, I think they only have panels on 35% of it. And they have those in little pods, little groupings that they put a fence around, and then they plant native vegetation around the fence. So they're basically not visible. And in the in between land, they plant native grasses and things like that to help the ecosystem. And then when it's done, I can't remember the word for it, and I heard it a million times last night. But they will take everything down, recycle and restore the land to how it was, and it can be turned back into farmland. So some folks were upset, like, we don't want to lose this much farmland. Well, there's 350,000 plus acres of agricultural land in Cass County. So this is like less than 1% of that could be, and they're still going to be farming something. It's just farming energy. I don't know. It just, I see, people get really keyed up and upset about things, and I understand that, but it seems like, how can we say no to an additional $1 million of tax revenue to our county that doesn't come off the backs of our working class people? It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad that you mentioned those things that were maybe some misinformation to hopefully help clear the record for some people if they were not sure. Do you know by chance if the energy that they're farming for the solar, do you know what it's going to be used for?
I don't. I know there was a rep from OBPD there saying that they would, they're all for this because it's a way that they can get extra power at a cheaper rate than if they were to put in their own OPPD funded solar farm. That they want to provide the best, cleanest energy at the best rates for their customers, and this is how you can do it. So I imagine some of it would go to OPPD, some of it might go to those all those server farms right north of us in Sarpy County, because I'm sure those suck a lot of energy. But I mean, regardless, if we're making it from the sun instead of from burning coal, like, it's a win-win in my book. And I've worked at a coal-fired power plant, so I know just how dirty they can be.
Right, yeah. I think it's just exciting to have, opportunities like that in Nebraska where we can, get some progressive energy working for our state.
I agree. And I feel like, this should have been something that was done 20 years ago. I feel like we're already behind the curve. So we don't want to be where we're at with legalizing cannabis and, be on the tail end of being leading the way. I think jumping on this now is only going to be beneficial.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's interesting. So thank you for commenting on that, because I know it's an important issue for people in your district for sure. It looks like we have another question.
Okay.
When meeting people in your district, how engaged do you find people are with the Nebraska legislature, or awareness of what types of decisions are being made there? Good question.
Not very. I would say the portion that we picked up of Lancaster and Lincoln has always been pretty politically engaged because it happens in their city. But I will be the first to admit that when I was approached about running a couple years ago, I had to look up who my senator was, because they're not a particularly active senator. And I don't think, and I do vote regularly, and I look up things and issues, and more so now that I'm running and more engaged in it. But yeah, no, it's more of just people don't really, no, pretty passively political. But I'm here to change that. I'm trying to go and have these conversations with people, get them excited about my candidacy, but also just taking part in the process, because the more people that vote, the more fair the election is.
Right. Have you had pretty good, have you been received pretty well at the doors, I guess I should say, as far as like everyone you've spoke with?
Yes, I think I will say that I so much prefer to meet people in person because I love talking to people. I love meeting them where they're at, but also just it's so much better than I'm so terrible on the phone. The most awkward phone person. So yeah, anytime I can get a chance to meet voters and talk to them face to face, I will take that because it's no brainer. I'm a fun, nerdy, passionate person, and I think that people can relate to me because I'm real. I'm very much not a polished uh, public speaker or politician by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that question from the audience.
Yes, thank you.
Got a lot of questions tonight. I like it.
Me too.
Oh, and also I'll just do a little plug for our group then, regarding the question about if people are aware of the legislature and do they know what's going on. If you need help, that's what our group exists for. That's why we formed, is because we're there to help each other learn about the legislature, the unicameral, especially unique to Nebraska. So if you're a forward-thinking, progressive-minded person who wants to learn, you should join us. And little plug also, we have our update at 8 o'clock tonight after the interview. If you wanted to get in on the updates for what's going on in this session right now. Only a few days left, but there's a lot of important bills going through right now, which leads me to my next question. Do you have a bill I know you sound like you're super busy right now. So, and it's hard to follow with the legislature. We know, and we have lots of help, and you're campaigning, but is there a bill that you're watching this session that you hope either passes or fails?
I have one of each.
Oh.
So, so the LR3CA, the voter ID, and I know there's also a petition circulating for voter ID. I think that voter ID laws are completely unnecessary. And the thing that people don't understand is that if we're going to require identification for people to vote, that means we're going to have to give everyone an identification. So we're going to have to figure out a way to make that happen, because otherwise, if people have to pay for their IDs and then they need their IDs to vote, well, that's an unconstitutional poll tax. So just that basic fact, I think, escapes a lot of people, and not to mention the fact that we've never had widespread voter fraud in Nebraska. Our elections have always been safe and secure, and we don't. If it's not broke, we don't need to try and fix it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that misinformation has spread a lot since 2020. And we've always had safe and fair elections in Nebraska. And I hope that the more we can tell people that, are people in your district seeing that are they signing that petition a lot? I haven't really seen too many.
I haven't even seen it around. I mean, I've seen the cannabis one. I have not seen the voter ID one. I think I've seen, in local Facebook groups, sign the thing here, but I haven't been approached with it at all. So that's hopeful to me. And I hope that they don't get enough signatures, but I also hope that this thing in the legislature also fails. But the one I want to see pass is LB 960, which would eliminate the necessity of teaching students to pass the praxis exam. That is, say that fast.
Yeah, really.
So the praxis exam is midway through their teaching school, and it keeps a lot of very excited, very qualified teachers from advancing and graduating and becoming teachers. And I think that standardized testing is not a proof of ability to teach kids. Standardized testing is also just it keeps people out because of the cost involved with it. I think I read a testimony that somebody had to take it 3 times, never passed it, and it's hundreds of dollars each time. And this is a perfectly excited person that wants to go into schools and teach, and we're hemorrhaging teachers on the other end. So this I think would be so beneficial to our schools if we could get rid of that requirement of our teaching students.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't even aware of that. But yeah, that seems like red tape we definitely don't need right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us that why you stand out from your opponents, or anything else that we didn't mention yet tonight that you want to bring up?
I have several ways in which I stand out from my opponents. Some of them are visibly obvious. I'm a lot more passionate, but I'm the working class candidate in my district. I don't have the money that my opponents have, but what I lack in funds, I make up for in enthusiasm and work ethic and support. Like anybody, I've gotten a lot of people who just wholeheartedly believe in me and have jumped on to help me because they want me to win. They want to see somebody who genuinely wants to help people represent them. So that's really, I take that to heart. I love it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm the lunch lady for legislature.
Yeah, and I just want to say again that I really appreciate you running, and I've seen how hard you've worked for it, and I think that's a really important component of it too, because if you're working that hard as a candidate, we know you're going to work hard as a representative as well. And campaigning is not easy, and I know everything looks really good, and I think you've got a really good chance. So just keep working hard. And I think that's all I have for you. If you want to just let everyone know where to go to for your website and your social media handles.
Right. So my website is slatteryforlegislature.com. My Facebook is, I think it's facebook.com/slattery4NE. Instagram is @slattery4legislature. Twitter is @slattery4NE. But if you go to my website, it links to my socials. And yeah, and I have a really great website. I had it revamped by an organization out of Canada earlier this year, and it launched in January, and it's so awesome and user friendly. And speaking of nerdy, I got my bachelor's in graphic design from Creighton before I went to culinary school. So all of my designs I have made myself.
Oh,
yeah, even the lunch tray and the nutrition label, all of that stuff, and I have made a whole bunch of buttons. And I've got all kinds of swag. I'm a big design nerd too. So yeah,
okay,
so I
so
love my website.
go to your website, order your swag, because that also helps with fundraising.
Absolutely, yes. And like I said, I'm not a wealthy candidate. So and my campaign has been entirely funded by grassroots donations from individuals so far. So that being said, if you want to throw $5 my way so I can get some yard signs and some walk cards ordered, I would be ever so grateful.
Yes, and well-funded opponents can be beat. You just have to outwork them, and it really looks like you have so far. So congratulations on that, and best of luck to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Yes, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Great. All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.